the distortions, they're just a natural process. It's not a bad thing to be distorted. And there seems to be this wanting to always be aligned, and then there's this, when you're not aligned, you judge yourself for not being aligned, and it's like there's this kind of perfectionism to always being aligned, and it drives you crazy. It actually stops you from being aligned by your judgment of your distortions, right? So I found the easiest way to... So when you see the distortion, I say to myself, it's a resistance. So it's just, you just put a really general label on it, resistance, right? And it brings you out of the details. Like if you've got some resistant thought going on, and you resist that, as well, you're actually being the resistance itself, and just amplifying it more. So the 4 polarities are resistance of resistance, and then and in that polarity kind of stuck in your head, and it seems to be like there's this seeking of a solution to get out of the resistance, but your resistance to the resistance keeps you stuck there. And it really is like this dimension of being in that conceptual mind, and it's just fear, right? It's actually fearing itself and trying to run away from itself, but all it does is just amplify the fear and amplify the distortions. And you just practice with knowing these 4 polarities. You're just seeing the behavior with the seeking. Then there's you have identified with the resistance, and you're trying to solve it yourself. And all you need to do is acknowledge that it's there. You just have to acknowledge, okay, I'm in resistance of resistance. And just by that acknowledgement, you step out of it, and then you're into the other polarity. Like the next polarity seems to be like a gradient. So there's a gradient from resistance of resistance, and then your acknowledgement of resistance of resistance, and that acknowledgement pulls you out of it into allowance of resistance or acceptance of resistance. There's resistance, and I accept that. So that polarity is kind of like I don't know. You just feel relief. There's a stepping outside of caring, and just letting the resistance be what it is, without any of you're kind of taking your energy out of your thoughts and feelings. And if you can just be there with that, further acknowledgement of allowance of resistance takes you into allowance of allowance, which is rarely do people allow themselves to be in that state. Like you reach this state of bliss or just ease, and it's just all the resistance is just fallen away. But rarely do people let themselves allow themselves to be in that allowing state, because the mind steps in with expectation. So it's kind of like, there's this, the reason that I want to get aligned is because I want to manifest this or whatever, and it's that expectation. So when you reach that state of allowance, as soon as you expect some kind of exterior proof, you step down again back into, it's actually resistance of allowance. And that's the contrast. Like that actually creates an expansion of the allowance. You step back down through the polarities. So it's kind of like this dance of trying to stay in that state of allowance without any expectation, without any waiting for anything. It's just the proof. All the proof you need is the fact that you feel amazing, and you really don't care about any outcome. Like the outcome is the allowance that you were really, like the outcome that you were always looking for was that state of being in allowance of allowance.